All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Jerry Jones' most recent comments, talking about the Cowboys being all in for 2024. Um, so, um, basically, Jerry Jones has expressed his intention to go all in for the 2024 season, talking about also the urgency uh, given that Mike McCarthy is on his final year of his contract. Also said that free agency is also a possibility. Um, going after some guys that could help out the team. Um, with the there's actually we got to look at the free agents for the Cowboys, but they seem to have free agents. But yeah, so he's talking about them going all in. But listen, I mean, the first move that they decided to do was, okay, we're going to keep Mike McCarthy. Um, well, if he is entering his final year of his contract, then, depending on what they do, he's probably not going to come back. If the Cowboys don't take that next step, listen, you're bringing back Mike McCarthy, so I think we kind of expect more of the same. A solid regular season, then you get to the postseason, and then nothing's going to happen. Again, like the Ravens, although the Ravens are a better team, um, but again, the Ravens were the best team in the conference. The Cowboys, they play in the weaker of the two conferences. They to me, I thought were going to get to the NFC Championship game. I did, because of how well they played at home, and I just thought it was going to ultimately be them versus the 49ers. And what happened? They lost to the Packers. But not only did they lose to the Packers destroyed them. Now, again, the final score was closer than it actually was. It was 48-16 at one point. But Jerry Jones, you're talking about going all in. You're bringing back Mike McCarthy. I mean, you're bringing back Dan Quinn, it looks like. Is that really going all in? And let's not forget, what did the Cowboys do before this season? They acquired Stephon Gilmore. They acquired Brandon Cooks, which were good moves. But, again, where did that leave you? Where did that bring you? You got knocked down in the first round. You didn't even make it to the divisional round. You got knocked down in the wild card round. And this is with Dak Prescott being an MVP candidate, and Deron Bland and his Pro Bowl season that he had, and breaking the record for most pick sixes in a season. Micah Parsons, who was a stud on defense, and CeeDee Lamb with the season he had. You had all these things go great for you during the regular season. You get to the postseason, and it didn't mean anything. One and done. That was it. So listen, there's always things they can improve on. I mean, listen, you did notice throughout the season that, there were at times the Cowboys defense was vulnerable. But they're a good scoring defense. I mean, they're opportunistic. They take advantage of teams' mistakes. They score. They score. Not just Deron Bland, but they scored defensive touchdowns. They were an opportunistic defense, but you know what? There were times this year they gave up a lot of points. Playoff game, obviously. You go back to the Thursday night game against the Seahawks too. This team does give up a lot. The Bills, look at what the Bills did to them. And James Cook, James Cook just ran all over that defense. Defense has got some holes on it. And then also you have a quarterback who, again, played well this year, but you get to the postseason and what happened? 2 interceptions, and one of them was a pick six. The other one could have possibly been a pick six, because the Packers maybe could have reviewed the. But maybe they probably still would have ruled that he was down. But either way, you get to the postseason and Dak Prescott did not perform well. He didn't perform well in the game. You look at the stats, you're like, wow, he threw for 400 yards. Yeah, but that was at the end of the game when the game was out of reach. So, listen, Cowboy fans, you see it on social media. The only way that things are going to change is if Jerry Jones takes a back seat and lets somebody else run the team. Is that going to happen? No. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen because, listen, you got these coaching candidates out there. You got Belichick, you got Vrabel, you had Harbaugh, but you were like, nah, we're going to keep McCarthy. Okay. And you know what? I was dead wrong about Mike McCarthy. I honestly thought Mike McCarthy was a good head coach. I did. But how it's been in Dallas, he really was a product of Aaron Rodgers. Now, Mike McCarthy drafted Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy helped develop Aaron Rodgers. But what has Mike McCarthy done since, you know, he got fired from Green Bay and took over for Dallas? 1-3 in the playoffs. Not good. Not good. The first season is kind of a pass because Dak Prescott obviously got hurt, and that kind of changed everything. Because he was actually going to have a good year, but then he got hurt against the Giants, the horrific ankle injury, and thankfully he was able to bounce back. But yeah, it's again one and done. Well, last year wasn't one and done, but you know what I mean. It's just they're not taking that next step. They have all this talent, and they just cannot take that next step. And Jerry Jones is talking about going all in. Well, what else can they do? I mean, obviously, yeah, the defense I think is something they can. I think the defense still needs some work. Because again, I mean, the Packers shredded them. Look at the 49ers too. Earlier in the season, they shredded them. I mean, you're going to be getting Trayvon Diggs back next year. However you want to look at that. I know he gives up big plays too, but. Again, you want him back on that defense. That's really what I got to look at. And also, I guess in the running game too, because I don't know what happened with Tony Pollard. He just was not running the football as well as he did the previous season. But again, I know I said I don't know what, but it had to do, I think, with the injury because he got hurt in the playoff game against the 49ers last year. So I think a year removed from that, you'll see a new Tony Pollard. But also, you didn't really have another back to kind of like balance with, and that's where I think they kind of missed Zeke this year. Because at least with Zeke, he could get those short yardage gains. He could be a guy that you could use at the goal line. Because, I mean, last year, Tony Pollard was one of the most explosive running backs in the league. It's just, I think it had to do with the injury. But, so I think that's an area that they can maybe improve on is the running game. But yeah, you look at the receiving core with, of course, CeeDee Lamb leading it, and then you bring in Brandon Cooks, who was a good number 2, Michael Gallup. The Cowboys always seem to have a good tight end. Jacob Ferguson, he was, he really he played well at times this year. And the offensive line, it's been good. It's obviously not the offensive line Dak started out with, but when he first got drafted, but it's his rookie season, but still a unit that provides protection. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Again, there's things that they can improve on, but ultimately you got to look at the head coach. You also got to look at the quarterback too, because again, I think Dak Prescott is a solid starting quarterback, but I don't think he's somebody that's going to take you to where you want to go. I don't, and I've stood by that. I've kind of warmed up to him because I used to just think he's overrated. But I think he's become a better quarterback, since he first came into the league, because now it became his team more so as opposed to Zeke's team. But again, even then, it's just you're not going anywhere. You're still like in the same spot. So, and and the postseason's different. Again, you get to they have this great regular season. They get to the postseason and they play better competition and they lose. That's how it's been, in some of these years. With them. It's like, oh man, this could be it for the Cowboys. These last couple of years, I was like, oh yeah, the defense is kind of, because you go back to Mike McCarthy's first season, the defense was horrible. Then, now they've been playing better. They still give up a ton of yards at times. Again, we saw that this year. But it kind of was. It was kind of you didn't really. It was kind of masked over because you had Deron Bland with all his pick sixes. Micah Parsons, everything. Cowboys are winning games, but they there were times where the defense did not play well. Now it got exposed against the Packers because the Packers just ran the football all over them, and Jordan Love is slinging it all over the place. Wide receivers are wide open. You know, yeah, it's the defense is a little bit of an issue. But I don't know. Jerry Jones just thinks, yeah, we're going all in. Well, I mean, what about this past year? You weren't going all in then? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. Well, so far, going all in, it hasn't looked great because you brought back Mike McCarthy and you're bringing back, I guess, Dan Quinn. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But, yeah. Listen, the conference is going to be better. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. Like, you lost to the Packers, who were another team that was ahead of schedule. They're going to be better next year. I mean, again, I talked about the NFC North next year as a whole is going to be better. Now, I think the Cowboys are still better than some of those teams, but you got to deal with those teams. You figure the Eagles are going to, figure it out. Let's see how the coordinators change is going to play out for them. I mean, they'll still beat up on the Commanders and the Giants. The Giants got to, as a Giant fan, you got to prove something to me because I said the season's going to be over. The season will be dictated on what they do against Dallas week 1, and they got destroyed. So I'm like, yeah, the Giants are going to stink. And that's what happened. The Commanders, yeah, another team the Cowboys beat up on this year. So we'll see. And again, they don't have a head coach, so we got to see, what they end up doing there. You go to the NFC South. The Saints, you figure, are they going to figure it out next year? Because they were better towards the end of the season. The Bucs, obviously, we'll see what happens. They got a ton of free agents. The Falcons need a quarterback. Panthers are, we'll see. But, then you got the NFC West. Yeah, not really I mean, I still look at the Cowboys as better than all the teams in the NFC South. But then the NFC West, of course, you got the 49ers, you got the Rams. We'll see what the Seahawks do with the head coach. And then the Cardinals obviously are in rebuild mode. But still, I mean, there's a lot of teams that you're gonna have to deal with when it comes to the playoffs. Playoff football is different. I mean, I talk about the Cardinals. They lost to the Cardinals. They lost to the Cardinals this year. So, yeah. We'll see what Jerry Jones means by going all in. I don't really, expect much. But again, with Cowboy fans, they said the only way things are going to change is if Jerry Jones takes a step back. And he's not going to do that. So they're kind of going to be in that same, again, they're going to be going in circles. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing in the offseason. But so far, not off to the start I think Cowboy fans want to because they are bringing back Mike McCarthy. But again, if he ends up not getting it done in 2024, which is very likely the way things have gone so far, they're going to be looking for a new head coach. And I did see something because I've been looking at Bleacher Report a lot that, there's Jerry Jones is saying it's possible to maybe, work with Bill Belichick down the line. So when? It should be right now. You should let go of McCarthy, bring in Belichick. I mean, he's still there. It's crazy. He's still there. Mike Vrabel is still there. I'm curious to see if Vrabel ends up coaching now because I thought maybe he was going to, get a job, but nope. All right, so, like I said, let me know what you guys think about this topic. Now before we go, we're going to go into our final break of the show. So when we come back, we're going to talk about Super Bowl 54. We'll take a look back at that, and how that game went. Because obviously this is now, the Super Bowl coming up is now a rematch of this Super Bowl. So we'll talk about that and, how that game played out and what to expect from the game next Sunday. So stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.